Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to make a welcome baby card, and we are going to use a bunch of different supplies. We'll go over them real quick. First of all, we're going to use some stamps from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com and check out the video description. I'll have a link to their VIP newsletter where you can save 20% on your order. So I'm going to definitely be using Budding Spring because I love this big spring tree. I love the bunny. I think that these are really good images for baby shower, bridal shower, anything spring themed, and I am so ready for spring now. I might use a couple of these birds here from Woods in Winter, but I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to keep them handy just in case. And I'm going to use the Congratulations from the Live, Love, and Be Thankful set that is also from Rubber Stamp Tapestry. It's just some really nice sentiments for all occasion cards. We're going to use some soft colored inks. I'm using Distress Oxide. I've got Broken China, Peeled Paint, Cracked Pistachio, Worn Lipstick, and Antique Linen, and we're also going to use Walnut Stain. You don't have to have Distress Oxide inks. You can use whatever colors you like. I would just try to keep them a softer palette for a baby card. I also have a few peg stamps here. I've got some grasses, just some little leaves for my tree, and also a banner, and this is from a Happy Birthday set. I think it's called Party Time, but I thought it would be really nice for making our sentiment. And I also just have some random tiny little letters that I had from my stash. And I've got a green and blue ink brush. We're going to be doing some masking. I have already pre-cut some masks, and I'll show you how to use these in just a moment. I have a black fine liner and also a light brown marker that I'll be using, and I have a very conservative tip here for you for making your card. What I did first was use a 12 by 12 piece of scrapbook paper to make my envelope, and then with the scraps I cut a matting layer for the outside of my card. This is just a half sheet of tan cardstock, and then I had enough left over to do the inside, and then I put just a scrap of white cardstock in there. So that's a great way to get your envelope and your designer paper done in one step with very little waste. And I also found some pastel brads that I think will be nice for decorating this card. The cardstock that I'm working on is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2 inch, and I'll put all my measurements in the video description so you'll have them. I'm going to start off with this banner because we have to stamp what's in front first when we're masking, and I'm going to stamp down the first section of the banner in pink. I'm going to wipe it off on a paper towel, a wet paper towel. I'm going to stamp the next one in this antique linen because I'm going to be stamping letters on top, and I need to make sure they're going to show up. I don't know if I'm going to use this for, I don't know whose new baby I'll use this for because I don't have any friends that are pregnant currently, but I want it to be able to be used for a boy or a girl, so I'm just trying to keep my colors fairly neutral and just soft. And I'm just doing the linen again, so I've got very light colors here. And then I am just going to go ahead and use my black pen to just kind of give it like a little bit of a just kind of connect the banner pieces. There we go. And then I've already made my little masks by stamping out the banner onto a post-it note, and I'm just going to place those down over each of those little banners that I stamped. Now sometimes distress ink can take a while to dry, so you might want to heat set that first. So, you know, just kind of be aware of that. Now I am working on a stamping mat, which is a squishy surface. It's just like a piece of fun foam, but I don't want to get ink on that, so I'm just going to put a piece of newsprint underneath. And the one more thing I want to stamp before I go any further is this little bunny, and I'm going to do that in the walnut stain color. You could use black or gray or brown. It's completely up to you. I would just use it for this. I do the same color that you're going to do the tree, and I'm going to stamp him pretty close to the bottom of the card. There we go. And now I am going to use my mask to make some clouds. Now you saw me do this before where I just paper punched a like a scalloped oval, and I use that for a mask. That works great. You can also use your decorative edge scallop scissors and just cut some bumpy shapes, and you can use that as well to make your clouds. It works really well. You can use any ink you want for this. It doesn't matter. Some people had asked me last week about using ink brushes. Why do you have different ones for different types of ink? I have basically 2 sets of brushes. I have one that I use for dye-based ink, like regular distress ink, and then I have a set that I use for pigment inks, which would be like VersaFine or these distress oxides, because they're more like a pigment ink. It's just basically because the pigment inks are a little bit thicker, and they tend to make your bristles clump a little bit, so then if you go to a dye ink afterwards, you end up getting just a bizarre effect. Now, just be careful when you go over the banners, because like I mentioned, that if the distress ink isn't completely dry, the masks might have a hard time sticking. You can see my pink one just lifted up a little bit there, so I just want to make sure I don't accidentally ink on that banner. And I like to start my brush on the paper and just kind of drag it up gently. Now when I get close to the area where I think I'm going to want to have the grass, I'm going to use this mask that I cut a long time ago, not a long time ago, a few weeks ago, and I'm going to use that. I also have a mask for my bunny, and I'm just going to cover him up so I don't get any ink on his ears. I save my masks until like they're unusable, so I will keep the same masks like right with my stamp set over and over again, so that way I don't have to recut them. And oh, I still want to use blue here. I'm just going to drag this up, and that's going to give me a nice horizon line, and it's just a pretty effect. Okay, so now I want to do some grass on my on the bottom part of this, so I'm going to switch to my green brush and my peel paint, which is just kind of like an olivey green ink, and it's not going to line up perfectly. If I had the other side of like where I die cut, if I kept the other side, that would line up really well, but it's not really that important. I'm just going to sponge that in there like that, and then I'm going to flip it over like that. I'm just going to be careful not to go into the sky when I do this. And drop it down again, and this is how you get that nice, those nice layers of grass. And then I am just going to dust the bottom of that. Okay, we want to keep our masks on. I'm going to replace this one right here because we're going to stamp the tree. And I'm going to move these ink pads out of the way because I have a little bit of a trick when it comes to stamping a larger area. I have found that sometimes if I'm using my I don't want to say they're bad. They're just not I don't have the nicest stamp blocks in the world, but they do the job. But you know, sometimes a flat block is a hard time with a big stamp, especially if you're like me. I don't put cushion on a lot of my unmounted stamps. What I do instead is I take some of this Aleene's Tack It Over and Over glue. It's a glue that never dries, basically, and I mix it with a little water and I brush it on the back of my red rubber stamps. And it's very inexpensive to mount your stamps that way, and you can always stick them onto your storage sheets and back onto your blocks over and over again, so it works really, really well. But because of that, I have no cushion on my stamp, so I need to stamp on a cushion. And sometimes with these larger stamps, I still need a little bit of help making them stamp really well. So what I'm going to do here is use a curved block. This is called a rock-a-block. This is designed to use when you mount your stamps the way I do. And basically, because it's curved, it allows you to get every bit of that stamp to come in contact with the paper. So you just rock it on like that, and you get a really beautiful image. Now again, before I take off my my masks, I'm going to go in with just a light brown marker. This is a rear brush pen. It doesn't matter what brand you have, but I noticed that the Zig brand, you can get lighter colors, so I'm just using that because I know it'll be really easy to just go in there. And it's a little easier if you do it before you take your masks off, because that way if you accidentally go a little overboard, it doesn't really matter because you've got that mask protecting the area. And you don't have to color it perfectly, just get some stuff on the branches. And then we're going to do a little stamping here before we take those masks off as well. I found this little stamp here from Watercolor Garden, and I thought it was really nice just because there's several leaves. It's going to be quicker to use than to try to stamp all these leaves individually. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp them on my tree. So if you look at the side of your stamp, you're going to see a little line that tells you where the stem begins. So as long as you have that line kind of pointed towards your tree, your leaves are going to end up in the right spot. You just want to make sure they're coming from a branch, basically. Now, I know our card's getting kind of dark here, but we kept really light with our banner stamping, so I think our banner will be nice and easy to read. And that's what I was really going for there. And put one right there. Now, if you also want to do some of these little grasses, I don't know if you really need them so much because there is so much wonderful texture with the stenciling that we did. But you can stamp this around a few times. Especially kind of behind the bunny, like, or over the bunny, so that you've got that nice texture in there, and that will just kind of give him a place to be. So now we can remove our masks. We've got a nice bright white bunny there. That's a nice springtime image, and we've got our banners here. And then we're going to go back to that same dark ink that you used to stamp your focal images. I used walnut stain, but you use whatever you use to stamp the bunny and the tree. And we are going to do that, use that to stamp our little letters. And these little stamps, I picked them up at like the dollar section of a big box craft store. They have them in a bunch of different fonts. I've even seen them at Walmart. And they're really great for stuff like this. And there, that's all there is to that. I think it might be kind of cute to do some of those little brads that I had. So I'm just going to take a look here. And I think I was going to put them at the end of my, at the end of the little banner, but I thought it'd be even cuter to put some of them on the, kind of in the ground. So I've got some purple and some teal flowers, so I'm going to use those. And I'm just going to use my needle tool to poke a few holes to insert them with. I think I'll do 3 because that will look nice. I put my little brads in there, and I like to put them on before I adhere my card together because I can hide the little legs in there. And I am just going to simply layer up the front of the card. Now we still have our sentiment to put down, and I am going to actually put that on the center, on the inside of my card, because I didn't have quite as much space as I thought I was going to on the card front with that bunny there, and I really like the bunny, so I am going to just do that right on the inside. Now you can use whatever color you want, but I don't know if it's going to be for a boy or a girl, not that you know, it has to be a certain color, but I think I'm just going to keep it brown just so, you know, it's a little bit more versatile. And I'm just going to stamp that right at the top there. And then it gives you a little something to start what you're going to write. And there you have it. And I always just like having a matching envelope, so starting with an envelope I think is a great idea. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want any of the supplies I use, check out the video description because I'll have them all linked up down below. And this would be a really fun card to make in a batch, and also to use up some of your scrapbook paper, because one sheet of scrapbook paper does all your embellishing and makes your envelope, so it's very economical. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.